Hi, everyone. This is Raina Carrillo with Purpose and Passion. I have a new and exciting individual here sitting with me, Miss Natalie Clayton. She is a life coach. And what's different about her is her story. Very powerful for me because you'll hear it all in this interview in a few seconds. But, anyways, I want to say thank you for coming on Purpose and Passion.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here. This is awesome. Thank
Yep,
you.
I always think like, God or the universe, and everybody has a different perception, but I feel like, God doesn't make mistakes.
Absolutely.
I just remember like our team, the Lux Media team, was having lunch, and we moved into the other long table where you're supposed to network. And then you
Right.
came over, we're like, come over here. And you're like, okay. And then here you are today.
Here I am. Amazing.
It's gonna be, sharing your story and your testimony with us. So with the viewers, take us down memory, back to memory lane. Like, where are your parents from? Where were you born? How was your childhood?
Okay, well, my parents, George and Irene Clayton Sr., are now deceased. They're now in heaven, but they were from Georgia originally, in a little
right.
small hick town called Greenville, Georgia. It's like a little dot on the wall. And it was like 50 miles, maybe 35 miles south of Atlanta.
Okay.
Both were born and raised. And they got married back in 1957 on their honeymoon, and they came to California. My dad was in the Navy, and my mom was 18. My dad was 21. And they never went back. We went back, of course, as kids, and
Yes.
because our family was in Georgia. But we were all born in San Diego.
Nice. I love San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego's nice. It's my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were born and raised in San Diego, 5 of us total. I'm the youngest, second to the youngest. I was the baby, but second to the youngest. And so that's where it all started. Yeah.
Okay. So when in our childhood, sometimes it forms us. So in your childhood, did you experience? Did you have a good childhood? Were you bullied in in junior high or high school or elementary? How was
Yeah.
growing up being a child for you?
Okay, well, growing up being a child for me was wonderful. So I grew up in a 2-family home. My dad, like I said, was in the Navy. My mother was a stay-at-home mom
Mm-hmm.
until I started kindergarten. And she went back to school. My mother was a teacher.
Nice.
And my dad retired from the Navy after 20 years. And then he decided to go back to school, and he was a psychologist. So my father had his master's degree. My mom had her bachelor's degree. And we were a very cohesive family.
Nice.
So, we did everything together. So growing up, I thought everybody was like my family. My dad was Navy, so we had a lot of Navy family friends, and we were exposed to every culture: white, black, Hispanic,
Yes.
food, Filipino. My dad was a great cook. I remember growing up, my father would make adobo.
Mm-hmm.
We would have, different types of food. And so we just did everything together,
That's
from
a
going to
beautiful
the
thing.
commissary to park, beach. And so growing up, I thought everybody was like my family until I started high school. And then
Yes.
it's like you know things, but then you really don't know. And so then I started seeing, the different disparities in families. And so it was like, wow, okay, there's a whole different world out there.
Yes.
But speaking of bullying, I was bullied. I was bullied, for many years. When I was 7 years old, I started running track. And so I
Okay.
always was athletic for some reason. And I remember being bullied by my track team members.
Wow,
Yeah,
share
bullied.
that,
Well,
man. Like the feeling, like how does it feel? I mean, obviously, I was bullied one time,
mhm.
but I fought the person, and even though I got my butt whipped, the person didn't want to come fight me again because they knew I was like, this
Yeah.
is it. Like, Then my mom always says, if somebody do this and you allow them, they're going to continue
Exactly.
until you stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And then back in those days, the old school people were like, if you got your butt whipped, when you come home, I'm gonna whip your butt, and you got to go back and whip her butt. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of whipping butts up in here.
Okay, so I was born in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Early to mid 60s. And so during that era, everybody looked out for you in
Yes.
the community. It was like a whole village, and families looked out for one another. It was that type of environment. But so moving forward, when I ran track, so we were a sports family. My brothers played
Yes.
football, basketball, and baseball, and so I ran track. That was the only sport that I was involved in, amateur wise. And I never forget this. I was 7, and my dad was a very, very supportive father.
Mm-hmm.
He would just support us in everything that we did. And I remember, so I did all sprints. I ran the, 440. So I'm really dating myself. 440, 220. I ran the 100-yard dash every now and then, but all the relays, and I did the long jump. And I really loved running. I really loved running the 440 because it was competitive and it challenged me to
Yes.
push myself, further and harder. But anyway, so there were 2 relay teams. There was the A team and the B team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was on the B team, but I was always this shy girl growing up. And one track meet we had, my Coach Williams, I'll never forget him. He was this big, big, big black man, but this quick, fast, really smart. He put me on the A team.
Mm-hmm.
However, my teammates didn't approve of that. And they said some horrible things about me. We don't want her on the team. She's slow. And I mean, all this negative stuff, right?
Aww.
And so, here I was, 7 years old, and I'm just looking at them. And I remember looking at my coach, and he just looked at me like, you can do this. I see this in you. And so I never forget, my dad was in the stands and he was watching me. And I think he must have read my body language. And I remember he just stood up and he just looked at me. And I looked at him and I thought, okay, it's on.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, you can say all you want to say, but we're going to win. And so, I mean, they were like to the point where they didn't want to pass me the baton. We were practicing. I mean, they just kind of ostracized me.
Yeah.
Anyway, the race started. I get in position. I was on 3rd leg. I get the baton, and I was gone.
Yes.
And we won. We won first place. We wound up going to the Junior Olympics. And my father was such a amazing person. He was like, I saw you. You were like the fastest girl out there. Your legs were spinning.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, just that type of thing. So for me, being bullied was an opportunity to me to show you.
Yes. To show
So
you that I can do it.
Yeah, I can do it. You can talk all the talk you want to, but I'm going to show you that I can.
That's how I feel right now in life.
That's how I feel. I mean, that's who I am.
Yeah, it's okay, you think I can't be mayor because I'm going against a Goliath, but I'm like, just watch me, just see this journey.
And sometimes what I realize, for me, I didn't have to physically say anything. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to show you.
Yes.
And so that's just been who I am my whole life. That's a testament of who I am today. And my kids are the same way. Mm-hmm. And I just believe that there's a quiet storm, and sometimes storms are more powerful.
Yes, they are.
And the quiet person to me can be the most powerful person. So so that was my example.
So when you got to high school, what was your vision? You know how they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like
what I want to be?
Yeah, you know how they ask you that question in elementary? Yeah. I remember my answer in elementary was I wanted to be the president of the United States or a ballerina. Wow. That was Raina in the 2nd grade.
Wow.
Yeah. Ballerina or the president of the United States.
Oh, wow.
And so obviously when life hits you, you get to high school and it's like, what you going to do with your life?
Right.
And at the time, I mean, even though I didn't feel I was going to live to see 18, mm-hmm. I still had a vision of maybe becoming a nurse or a medical assistant because I like helping people. Mm-hmm. So what was your thing for high school?
Well, you know what? I always saw myself as a successful woman in a suit, a business suit, and high heel stilettos.
Yes.
Walking down the street, somewhere in downtown. I didn't know exactly where, but I saw myself as being successful. I saw myself being a leader. Mm-hmm. And, as the test is where I am today. Yes. But I always saw myself as being successful and traveling the world. And it's interesting. So my dad, you can tell I'm a daddy's girl, right? So I always talk about my dad.
Which is a beautiful thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was beautiful. My father was a beautiful person. My mom was beautiful too. And my father he had a vision of me to go into the Navy, to be an officer in the Navy, mm-hmm. and to be a JAG. And because I graduated from high
And
school
what's
when I
a
was
jag?
17. So a JAG is a judicial um, assistant to the judge or judge. I don't know
Oh,
what the
something in the
acronyms.
court's.
You're an attorney,
Okay,
basically.
okay,
You're an
okay, okay.
attorney. So I don't judicial um, assistant. I don't know what it means. So
Yes.
forgive me.
It's
We have to
okay.
scratch
It's
that
okay.
part
It's
out.
okay. It's okay.
But anyway, so that was his vision of to go in as an officer and be a JAG and be an attorney. And at 17, I thought, no way, I'm not going to
Yeah.
do that. I'm like, okay. And so I was like, well, you might have to wear a uniform because my vision was me wearing a suit
In those
and those
hills
heels.
in downtown LA.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so, so I was at 17. My dad was like, you just think about it. Don't you want to do it? And I was like, no. And I was like, I don't want to be in a uniform. Well, my career, I was in uniform. I
Which
was
is law
was a law
enforcement.
enforcement.
So after you graduated from high school, did you go straight into law enforcement?
No.
Okay, kind of tell us that little
So
story.
after high school, I started going to a community college. I went to a community college, San Diego City College, and I thought I wanted to major in accounting. Why? I don't know.
I like it too.
But I was fascinated with numbers. And I worked at a bank. So I started working at that time it was California First Bank. So I'm really dating myself, which is now Union Bank. And I started off as a teller as part-time. And I was like, okay, I wanted to work because I love clothes and I wanted a car and, all these different things.
Yes.
And I was going to school. And so then when I was going to school, I realized I loved accounting. It was good. And the second part of accounting, accounting 115A and 115B. If those of who know that class, and I just did not like it.
Yeah.
I felt like I was, crunching numbers, and I felt like I was really isolating myself away from people. But I love people. There's a part of me that has this passion for people.
Yeah.
But anyway, went to school. I took a business law class, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. Still not really wanting to go to law school because at that time I wasn't really sure, and fell in love, had kids, got married, and got hired at the city of San Diego.
Okay.
And I started off as a dispatcher, and so I was the 911 operator.
Yes.
And I took all those calls and so forth. And I left the bank at that point. My daughter was born, left the bank, and was working as a dispatcher. And then, got married, had more kids, and then I had an aha moment. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? The rest of my life? Am I going to, I just had this vision of me making more money and being in a different career for myself. And so I started.
How was law enforcement?
Law enforcement was great. I loved it. That being in law enforcement, the training was amazing.
Wow.
It's like the nucleus of who I am. And I would never change that journey of my life. Because when I was going through the police academy, now mind you, I was the girly girl who never wanted to touch a gun. I was scared of guns. I thought if you touch a gun, you look at a gun, it's going to go off.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But it was great. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that no matter what I go through in life, I will overcome.
Yes.
So that was like another layer of me, building myself up as to what I already knew about myself. But it was just like, because I went through all that training, it was a paramilitary organization, and it was great.
Yes.
And then I had an opportunity to work in the community, working with people.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So I love that. I love it. It was great. I experienced a lot of different things because it's a male-dominated career industry. But what I learned was that we are needed as women in that environment. I never forget Captain Johnson. And because when I went into the police academy, I was in my 30s, my early 30s. I was a single mom. I was divorced from my husband, and I had 3 kids. My daughter at the time, I think she was 11, I think. Yeah, she was young. So I had kids in elementary school. Yes. So I'm in the police academy doing my thing, learning how to shoot a gun and, be a police officer. And then over here, I had to be a mom. So I had to learn to balance, both of those worlds.
Yes.
And learn to be a police officer. But it was great.
So what was the highest rank you hit in law enforcement before you obviously had a new chapter in your life? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Before you left, like what was your position as a law enforcement?
Let's see. Well, I worked for three different agencies. So it was San Diego. I reached the rank of police officer two at San Diego. I left,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to the Department of Justice with the state of California. I was a special agent,
Ah, nice.
and I call those my GI Jane days
Mm-hmm.
because I carried an MP5 and a Glock on my hip. I was like all that, that stuff.
Yes, yes,
It
yes,
was fun,
yes.
exciting, and then my last tenure was working for corrections, so I ran a couple of parole offices. You
Yeah.
know, I worked that until my the door was closed on me,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I was dealing with a health issue. Actually, as a matter of fact, I was diagnosed with cancer. Yeah,
Wow.
stage 3 cancer, and at that moment, the door was closed. And I thought, wow, okay, I need to, I need to do some soul searching. I need to figure out how did I get to this place,
Mm-hmm.
with this illness, and so that I can, move forward in my life. And but yeah, but I I did the full spectrum of law enforcement. I was in uniform. I was in a black and white. I worked in communities, investigated everything you can possibly think of, exposed of, and did.
When the doctors told you you had cancer, what was like the first thing that popped out of your mind?
Wow, interesting enough that you asked me that question
Yes.
because all along in my life, God was preparing me for that moment.
Oh.
So so let me just go back a minute. Okay, so before I got diagnosed with cancer, my oldest son was in a horrible, horrible accident.
Mm-hmm.
He was, and this was probably 11 years ago, I think. And my son had just turned 22. He was in college, and he was hit by a bus, and he was dragged 300 feet. And he is a walking miracle to be alive today. But when he had this accident, my whole world unfolded.
Yeah.
But in my spirit, I the Lord told me that he's going to be healed.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be okay. I felt that in my spirit that he was going to be okay. So I went through that process with my son. 10 months of him being in the hospital, 40 surgeries.
Mm.
Um, you know, not knowing. I mean, every day was challenging.
Yes.
It was a very traumatic injury and accident that he had. But from there, seeing my son through the power of faith and prayer and just believing and being with him, I believed
Yes, yes,
that
yes.
anything was possible.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I didn't believe it, but I mean I had
Yeah, but
factual
now you have
evidence,
you
right?
have proof for
Because I
yourself.
made a conscious decision that okay, God, I'm going to trust you. I believe your word is a breath of life. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to pray over my son. I'm going to be there. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to trust you and believe that my son is going to be healed, and
He
he was
was.
healed. And so when I got my diagnosis, yeah, it was like wow. It was like it hits you like a ton of
Mm-hmm.
bricks, and then you're like, wait a minute, okay, this can't be happening.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, you know,
Yeah. Oh shit.
oh shit,
So I'll say for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember calling my mother, and I told my mom, I said,
Mm-hmm.
Mom, they said it's malignant. And she was like, what? And I remember my mom and I cried for like 30 minutes.
Yes.
And I was in my car. And at that time, my position, I was with parole. So I had all my gear, my uniform, my gun. Here I am getting this news and I'm working. I'm like, and I paused, and my mom, we got on the phone, we cried. And then I said, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, because when you get the news, like, when I talk to certain people that have cancer, the first thing that come in their mind is, I'm going to die. Even if they don't want to believe it, they always feel like, because people, they don't tell us the success stories of the cancer patients that survived. They want to beat down
Yeah.
on you on the cancer patients that all died.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when you got more of the negativity going
Yeah.
on, when somebody gives you that news, you're like, oh my God, they're going
Well,
to
my
pass,
first thought was that I'm not going to die.
That's a blessing.
I'm like, okay, I mean, it was the news is like I said, it hit me to my soul, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow,
Yes.
But for me, it was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you know who you are, grieve, and now it's time to fight. and now it's time to win this. And so, um, yeah, I remember my doctor was like, okay, you need to go get an EKG. I was in a car. I cried with my mom. We cried. And I just said, okay, mom, I'm going to go back. And I went back and I went and got an EKG. And I was talking to the nurse when I got my EKG, and we just started talking. And and then miraculously, she's like, yeah, there was somebody else who had, cancer. And then she started telling me different stories of people
Hmm.
surviving. And I was like, wow. And so I made light of it. So it's like the lemons that come in my life. I made
Lemonade.
lemonade and I added my
Hmm.
sugar to it. And so I drank it. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to get through this. So I just believe that whatever you think internally is going to show up externally.
Yes.
So I had a doctor and he's like, oh, I checked all when you have cancer, it's like a CBI. I think it's like the number of your numbers that they check. He goes, yours were very low.
Yes.
He goes, you go and you tell them to cut that shit out of you,
Hmm.
proactively.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. He says, and I'm gonna tell you something else. He said, the same person who told you you had cancer, he may get cancer tomorrow. I mean, he was just like
Yes.
making it
Yes.
real.
Yes. Yes.
And I was like, wow. I said, okay. He said, go and go get it cut out of you. Get that cancer cut out of you.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. So I said, hey, I need to have my surgery. I need this boom, boom, boom. And so when I got diagnosed, it was May 17th. I'll never forget, 2012.
Yes.
I had my surgery June 3rd. And I had colon cancer. So they cut a foot of my colon out.
Hmm.
And from that moment forward, I kept hearing the doctor say, cut it out. You need to cut that cancer out of your
Hmm.
life. And so for me, that was symbolic of cutting out all the cancers and the dysfunctions out of my life
Yes. Yes.
that
Yes.
led
Yes.
me
Yes. Yes.
to get cancer.
I know. I hear you
Yeah.
because you can have like and not saying in your story, but I'm just like speaking as like just freelancing spiritually. It's like you could have been molested as a child, holding on to so many things.
Yeah.
Then you get married and you're in a beautiful marriage that turned sour, that the spouse cheated. And then now you're living with that and you didn't even heal from the first one.
That's a cancer.
Yes, and it
Yeah.
just keeps going,
Hmm.
going, and
Yeah.
then here it goes. Here goes the cancer.
Right.
So once you cut that cancer physically
Hmm.
with the body, the flesh, right?
Right.
Then you can work it out also spiritually. My
Right.
cousin, he's been battling with cancer for few years off and on, and
Hmm.
God keeps telling me to tell him. And I did talk to him, but I don't think it's reached his mind yet
Hmm.
to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Don't drink beer. Leave the carne asada alone.
Yeah.
Leave these heavy foods because
Yeah.
you're not changing your eating habits, and this cancer is coming back
Right.
because you're feeding it what it wants. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. So once you went through the cancer and you're cured, how did the life coaching thing happen?
Wow. Well, okay. First of all, my dear friend, I have a best friend. Her name is
Mm-hmm.
Andrea. We've been friends since we were 11 years old, and she would always say, "You're my life coach."
Oh,
Always. And I used to look
yes.
at her like, okay, but I've always had this a spirit within me to just like be able to see things to people and tell them stuff
Yes.
since I was little. So I've been practicing being a life coach my whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in my career, um, I always had this ability to see things that people couldn't see, and I would
Mm-hmm.
always tell them, you need to. Even
Yes.
when I was a police officer, I would just tell people stuff, and I would try to figure out, okay, how did you get to this place, and you can do better, right?
Yeah.
So after when I was diagnosed, I realized and I was married a second time. So three things happened to me. My son had an accident, life changing for him.
Mm-hmm.
I got a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
That was toxic. And then I got cancer. And so I just felt the Lord was like, okay, boom. I'm pushing you. I'm showing you. I mean, sometimes you got to get nudged. I
Oh,
was the person that had to be
yes.
almost knocked down
Yeah.
to wake up and to see what he wanted me to do. And now I'm a backup. I left law enforcement because I was
Mm-hmm.
frustrated because
Yes.
that to me, being in law enforcement was a segue to what led me to the person and the woman that I am today and what I do today. But I went back. And when I went back, that's when like the Lord's like, I'm going to close this door on you.
Yes.
So I went back and I realized, God, I was in this toxic marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I had a toxic boss. My job was toxic. It was just so many toxic things around my life.
Yes.
I was, I had some things that unforgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to really go through, reflect over my life,
Mm-hmm.
and change and do some shifting within myself. And people would ask me, how did you do it? How did your son survive? How did you survive cancer, an aggressive stage 3 cancer? How did you, how? And so I just started really reflecting on about my faith, my
Yes.
faith in God. And I just was pouring into people, without knowing I was pouring into people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, man, this was probably like 9 years ago. I went to a friend of mine after my son went through what he went through and I went through what I went through. She asked me to come and speak at her church and speak about faith. And so I was giving my testimony about myself and my son. And during that testimony, she was like, the Lord was telling me that you have this gift. When you come out of the things that we came out of,
Mm-hmm.
should you come out as gold, and you have this gift.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord was dropping in my spirit that you have the gift of either laying your hands of healing people or the words that you speak.
Yes.
And I already knew it when she said that, and I just remember getting chills, and I was like, wow, okay. So then, but I still was like, okay, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so after I went through my process, when I was when I went through my cancer, I had to heal myself and then my son. So I was
Yes.
like still being this, mom with the super S on my chest, right? But by the grace of God, and now allowing God to come in,
Mm-hmm.
and not thinking I can just do this myself, but do it in collaboration with God, and and the door started opening up for me. So
Wow.
yeah, so I sat back and I had to really assess my life and think about what I wanted to do, and I was running away from being a coach. I was like,
Yeah.
no, that's not what I want to do. I'm done. I don't want to deal with people.
Yes.
But truly, that's not who I am. And um, after my father died in 2016, and my mother got sick.
Okay.
And now, mind you, I went back to school because I retired. I got a disability retirement because when you're a police officer, it was presumptive because we were exposed to so much as police officers, so many chemicals, so many
Mm-hmm.
toxic chemicals, so many things that can lead you
To gain cancer.
yeah, carcinogens that lead you to cancer. And so that was discovered, and it was a 4-year process for me. But within that process, I went back to school, and I started realizing, God, I really want to be a coach. I really want to, touch lives, and let people know no matter what you go through in your life,
Yes.
you can overcome it. And so I'm just that vessel, that link. But just getting back to what was discovered. So my friend told me, her and her husband who are an evangelist, God said you have words to speak to create healing.
Yes.
Scared me to death.
She said,
Like, no, not this, not me,
Yeah.
So anyway, my mother, I never forget my mother. So my mom and dad were together forever. My father died in 2016, and then my mother got sick in April of 2018. And just, they didn't think she was going to make it. They were like, your mom's not going to survive. She
Yes.
was in a cardiac arrest. She had a massive stroke, and she was just hanging on by a piece of thread.
Mm-hmm.
But the grace of God. And so we prayed. I go, no, my mother's going to survive. She's going to walk out of here. No. So I remember going to church, and I was praying for my mother. It was on Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, I'm listening to the sermon. It's always emotional. And so afterwards, the Lord put in my heart, like, go and ask for prayer.
Yes.
So I went to the altar, and there was a husband and wife team, and they were praying with me. And so we were praying, and I was telling them all about my mother. Well, my mother is this, and I'm telling them all about my mom. I need you to pray for her, and I believe she's going to be healed. And we started praying, and she asked me what my name was, and we all started speaking in tongue. And then she looked at me dead in my face. She said, "The Lord's calling you,
Yes.
Natalie. God is calling you." And I was like, I know.
You was crying. I know you was
Oh my
crying.
God, I was crying. And so I was like, I know. And I'm, wait a minute, this is not about me. This is about my mom,
Yeah.
So even then, I was like, wait, time out. So I'm like, no, I gotta take care of my mom.
Yes.
So I went through the process, and then I was like, okay, God has been speaking to me. Let me just be obedient. I'm
Yes,
gonna I'm gonna I'm
girlfriend.
gonna go over here
Yes.
with my mom and help her, but then let me be obedient.
And continue
And
your
continue my
education.
education.
So
Yeah.
did you get like, because now we're living in a time where, they want us to be certified. So did you have to go to a certification
Yeah,
school?
I did. I went.
And who was it? Because I'm curious, because I took mines and I took
Yeah.
it. Her name is Shiny, but I forgot the title of
Okay.
the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember the NLP part was so like, wow, mind blowing, because I'm a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
And but my husband's excuse was I couldn't go to Miami to finish, because I had to go to Miami in order to finish it, because it was the creator of NLP. He was going to be there.
Oh wow. Okay.
And my husband told me like, no, you can't go because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, COVID is not going to touch me. It's never going to touch me,
Right.
because I already made that pact with God. You know what I mean?
Right.
When they start talking about it, I just remember that first day I went to Crenshaw by Slauson, and I got my frankincense and myrrh. And I start like, not saging, because it's not sage, but let's just start, burning the. I get confused with between essence and the sense. You know what I mean? Like I get confused when you burn that thing. I always get
Right.
confused on the word of what it's called. But literally I just light it up and just went through my whole house, blessed the front door,
Mm-hmm.
blessed the back door, blessed each room. And I just remember having this conversation with God, like I am not going to receive this in my
Right.
home, in my body, with my family. None of that. I rebuke it. And I do
Mm-hmm.
like this because I could feel that energy. That
Right.
isn't this thing. And I prayed about it, and God told me this is not my wrath.
Yeah.
And He said it's man made. So when I was doing this, I said whatever this is, this COVID thing, I want to take it and cast into the pits of hell where it belongs.
Amen.
And that was it. And during all this time, me and my family, we've never got it. Even when the kids went to school and they had a COVID scare, you
Mm-hmm.
had to take the kids to go get, their COVID tests, and they're fine. And they're like, well, how did they?
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
all like, I'm a very spiritual person. Like I truly have faith that God has protected me, because I remember, like you said, it's what comes out your mouth.
Right.
You have cancer, I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah. And
I,
it's like you
right.
put that, okay, the power of the tongue
Right.
is so powerful.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So when
is.
you went to school, what was the organization's name?
I went to Fielding Graduate School.
Okay.
It's in Santa Barbara. And the program, it was a 12-month program. It's certified through ICF, which is International Coaching Federation. And it's an evidence-based program, which I loved, because it covered everything from, it's like the psychology of people,
Mm-hmm.
um, um, emotional intelligence.
Yes.
We looked at, why people behave the way they do because of the way they, maybe
Mm-hmm.
your nucleus, your environment that you were raised in. So many different aspects. The difference between adult learning and not. Um, it was just a lot of theory, but it was also practicality. So I'm a more practical person.
Yes.
Because of I like dealing, with people and hands-on experience. But yeah, it was good. It was very intense.
Mm-hmm.
The program is based on organizations, and the program is for being an executive coach.
Mm-hmm.
But any form of coaching is really a life coach, because you're dealing with people's issues.
Yes, of course, their whole life.
Yeah.
So your life coaching component is, what is the title again?
Personal development.
Okay. And
Yeah.
why did you pick that?
I picked that because I believe that personally we're always evolving,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have to and developing,
Yes.
if you're open to it. And so I'm that person that comes in, and maybe you're a person who have gone through some type of experience in life,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel like you're stuck, or you feel like there's more that you need in your life, but you don't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm that person that comes in and help you see things that you can't see.
Yeah, remove that
I call it
blockage.
getting into I call it a foxhole. A foxhole is like you're in this hole,
Mm-hmm.
but there is no closure, right? There's an opening to
Yeah.
it, and your back is against the wall, but you don't know which way to go. You don't know how to get up. So I'm that person
Mm-hmm.
that comes in your foxhole,
Yeah.
and help elevate you
To get out of that
to get out of that
foxhole.
foxhole, but
Yes.
help elevate you, help shift your energy. I have the ability to see people's energy
Mm-hmm.
and move their energy, and that's my intuitive gift that I've had it my whole
Yes.
life. But now I'm really owning this, and it made me think about myself. So I really believe that I had to go through the things that I went through,
Yes.
like with my son, and then with my own personal journey. I had to see myself being healed. I
Mm-hmm.
had to see my son being healed.
Yes.
And interesting enough, with my son, before he had his accident, I kept having this feeling of this bus,
Yes.
and every time my son would talk about a bus, I would
It was
just
heavy on you.
it was heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and so when he had the accident, I was like,
Yes.
oh my
My
God,
God.
wow,
Yes.
but I believe I started speaking to my son in the spirit, like, you're going to be healed. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
survive. You're going to survive this. You're going to be healed. I hadn't even seen my son. I didn't even know what the damages were. He was so
Mm-hmm.
critically injured. So what all that I went through was for me to say, this is your gift. This is what you have.
Yes.
So, you have the gift to see things and help people see things that they can't see, and to help them to create an action plan,
Mm-hmm.
you
Action
know.
plans are important.
So it's like, I call it the triple A's. So you have an
Mm-hmm.
awakening, and then you have an awareness, but then you have to put it into action.
Yes.
And so I'm that person that comes in and help you develop an action plan to get you to your next, or to get you beyond your struggles, so
Yes.
that you can have a life of freedom and expansion. And I believe that we all have the ability to be free
Mm-hmm.
and to have a life of expansion and abundance, but you have to want it.
Yes. And
So,
talking about wanting,
yeah,
what
and
is your
desire it.
purpose? Do you know your purpose on earth?
My purpose on earth is to help move the energy of people and then help exalt people and elevate their lives
I love that
from
answer.
a place of struggle.
And
Yeah.
what is your passion?
My passion, man, I have a lot of, it's to
Mm-hmm.
create love and harmony. I love to talk to people when they are like, when people are feeling that they can't, like they're at the end of their road.
Yes, yes, yes.
So my passion is to come in and tell a person, like, no, 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 you have this light. There's a light within you.
Mm-hmm.
There is a light within you, and you need to learn how to tap into that light and own it.
Yes.
And then the passion that I love is seeing people like, oh, wow, I didn't think about it from that point of view.
Mm-hmm. Because you're helping them, and
Right.
now you're letting them, like through your help, you're letting them find their truth and their purpose and their
Mm-hmm.
passion. Because obviously they got to find it, but you're helping them find it, and when they find it, it just makes you feel like I I I conquered this. Like I helped this individual.
Right. But actually, it's not about me. It's about the power that's within me
Mm-hmm.
and the light that's within me, to shine the light on other people's darkness.
Yes.
So when I have got to that place where it's not really about me,
Yeah.
it's about other people, and it's a testament. Like, it was interesting. And it took me a while to own that. When my son was in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and the doctor was like, "Oh, you're an angel." He goes, "You're an angel. You were." He said, "Your son is survived because of you." And I was like,
Yes.
"No," but
because
I didn't
because there's
take
a
that.
yeah because there's a piece of that, because when you're a child and you're hearing your mom speaking life into you,
Yeah.
you have hope. Like, it makes me think about, like, my little cousin. I think it was 12, and he got hit by a car. He didn't survive,
Hmm.
but the family was already speaking death over him. He was
Yeah.
such a good boy. He's still in his body. Yes, the machines are on, but he's still there.
Yeah.
And it was easy for him to cross over to the other side because everybody already accepted it for what it
Mm,
was.
that's deep.
And it was because
Wow.
even when I called my pastor, I said, Pastor Mel, I said, he is still in his body. He can't move, but he can hear us.
Right.
His tears are coming down. I know he's in there. I said, but please, Pastor Mel, come and see this my cousin's
Right.
young boy. And he felt the same thing I felt. When he walked in, he was all like, the family is setting the tone for him to already be buried.
Mm,
So for him as a child, there's nothing to hold on because
right.
everybody's already accepting it. And his mother was the first one. His mother was the
Yeah.
first one, like, it's okay, like, for him, to
Wow.
to cross over. And for me, I'm a fighter. I'm like, no, It's not okay to cross over because I'm going to be here speaking life into you until you open those eyes.
Exactly. No, I
And
get.
then once you open those
Yeah.
eyes, and from there, if you decide that this is not a journey you want and your vital signs get low and you cross over, I'm okay with that.
Right.
But you need to open your eyes so you can talk to mama or figure something out. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm a fighter. I've always been a fighter.
Yeah. My son. It's interesting that you said that because my son was when he had his accident. I was in Northern California,
Hmm.
and all I could do was to speak to my son spiritually. And to this day, he's
Yes.
like, "Mom, I felt you."
Yeah.
And then when I went to go see him, he had all these. I mean, he had tubes coming out of every part of his
What kind
body.
of bus did he get hit
It was
by?
a large party bus.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
yeah, he was
Okay. And
mangled,
most people
twisted.
do not
Don't
survive that.
survive that. There were when my son had his accident. Ironically, there were like two other people that were hit by a bus, were dragged less than the amount
He was
he
dragged.
was dragged, and they
Hmm.
died. And I just remember when I finally saw my son, and like I said, he had all these tubes coming out of his body, and I
Yes.
remember I whispered in his ear, and I was like, Namar, mommy's here. And he opened his eyes.
Oh, my
I said, do
gosh.
you hear me? And he nodded his head. And I said, do
Hmm.
you know you're a child of the living God? And he nodded
Yes.
his head. And that was all I
Oh,
needed,
yes. Uh-huh.
So
Keep
it is
fighting.
we have the ability to speak life or death.
Yes. No, it's the truth. That
Yeah.
the power of the tongue is powerful, but people just don't get it.
Right. So
They just don't understand it.
my
Like I say,
right.
God gave us dominion and authority, but
Yes.
people just don't get
They
it.
don't get it because
Man.
the word of God is a breath of life. The
Mm-hmm.
word that you speak is spiritual,
Yes.
and whether it's negative or positive. So you really have to be careful what you speak. So my passion is to speak life into
Into
things
people.
and into people.
So
That
how
is my
can our
passion.
viewers find you? On social media, your website?
Okay, well, let's see. My website is tiltsynergyincorporated.com. I'm on Instagram as Coach Natalie J,
Mm-hmm.
Coach Natalie, and then the initial J. And I'm on LinkedIn as Natalie J. Clayton.
Wow. Thank you
Yeah.
so
And
much.
and Facebook, Natalie Clayton.
Yes. Thank you so much
No,
for
thank
sharing with
you.
the viewers about your testimony and your story, but also that you have an important journey to help others
Yes,
find their
absolutely.
truth, their purpose, and their passion.
Absolutely.
Well, until then, this is Raina Carrillo with Purpose and Passion signing out.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.